The sound of his palm hitting her cheek echoed through the courtroom. 8 months pregnant, standing before a judge, and the man she loved for 6 years had just slapped her in front of everyone. But that slap was not the worst part. What Eleanor discovered next would shatter everything she thought she knew. The CEO husband she adored? His company never existed. The $40 million tech empire? Completely fake. The charming man who swept her off her feet at her father's memorial gala? A predator who had been hunting her trust fund from day one. And his mistress? She was not his lover at all. She was something far more twisted. $14 million stolen, 6 years of lies, and a DNA test that revealed a truth so shocking it would change everything. This is the story of how one woman lost everything to a con man and how she rose from the ashes to destroy him. Stay until the end, because what happens in that delivery room will take your breath away. The sound of his palm hitting her cheek echoed off the marble walls of courtroom 7. Time stopped. Eleanor Hartwell stood frozen in place. Her hand moved slowly to her face. The skin beneath her fingers was warm, stinging. She could feel the outline of his fingers already forming against her cheekbone. The courtroom erupted into chaos around her, but she could not hear it. Not really. Everything had become muffled, distant, like she was underwater. Bailiffs rushed forward from both sides of the room. Their heavy boots pounded against the marble floor. Her attorney, Mitchell Crawford, was on his feet in an instant. His chair scraped backwards so hard it nearly toppled over. Someone screamed, a high, piercing sound that cut through the muffled silence. It might have been her mother. It might have been a stranger in the gallery. Ellie could not tell, but she did not move. She was watching her husband's face, Garrett Ashford, the man she had loved for 6 years, the man she had married in front of 200 guests, the man whose child she was carrying in her belly at this very moment. His mask was cracking. She had never noticed it before. The mask. But now she could see it clearly, the charm that had always seemed so natural, so effortless. It was slipping away like water draining from a bathtub. And underneath was something she had never seen before, something cold, something calculating, something that looked at her not with love or even anger, but with contempt, pure, undisguised contempt. Garrett Ashford, you are in contempt of this court, Judge Morrison shouted from the bench. Her gavel crashed down 3 times in rapid succession. The sound was like gunshots in the marble chamber. 2 bailiffs grabbed Garrett's arms, one on each side. He struggled against them. His face was red with rage. The veins in his neck stood out like cords. The truth is coming out anyway, he shouted. His voice bounced off the walls. She might as well hear it now. She might as well know what she really is. What she really is. Ellie blinked. Her ears were ringing. The slap had been hard enough to make her vision blur at the edges, hard enough to make her teeth ache. She was 8 months pregnant. Her belly strained against the navy blue maternity dress she had chosen so carefully that morning. Professional but soft, appropriate for court but flattering. She had spent 20 minutes deciding what to wear. 20 minutes, as if it mattered, as if any of it mattered. The baby kicked, hard, once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession, as if protesting the violence, as if trying to escape the chaos that had suddenly surrounded them both. Ellie pressed her hand against her belly, felt the small foot push against her palm. I know, she thought. I know. Just hold on. Eleanor, Eleanor, look at me. Her mother's voice cut through the chaos like a knife through silk. Judith Hartwell had somehow pushed through the wooden gate that separated the gallery from the court. The gate that lawyers and clients walked through. The gate that spectators were supposed to stay behind. Judith did not care about supposed to. She never had. She was reaching for her daughter. Her perfectly manicured hands, her designer suit, her pearls that had belonged to her grandmother, all of it moving toward Ellie like a lifeline. I am fine, Ellie heard herself say. The words came out automatically, the way they always did. Fine. She was always fine, even when she was falling apart inside, even when her world was crumbling around her. Fine. But she was not fine. She was very far from fine. Movement in the gallery caught her attention, a flash of red in her peripheral vision. She turned her head slowly, still touching her cheek, still feeling the heat of the blow. A woman was standing up, rising from a seat in the 3rd row. long dark hair cascading over her shoulders. A red dress that hugged every curve, expensive heels clicking against the marble floor as she pushed past other spectators. She was moving toward Garrett, toward the man being restrained by bailiffs, toward the man who had just struck his pregnant wife in front of a judge in a courtroom full of witnesses. Vanessa Cole. Ellie knew that name. She had found it 3 months ago in Garrett's phone, in text messages he had forgotten to delete, in a contact saved under the name V with a heart emoji. The mistress. She had suspected for months before that. Maybe longer. The late nights at the office that did not add up. The business trips that seemed to multiply. The way Garrett's phone was always face down on the table. The way he angled his body away from her when he texted. Small things, things she had explained away, things she had told herself meant nothing. But they meant everything. She knew that now. And here Vanessa was, in the courtroom, at a divorce hearing. Watching from the gallery like this was entertainment. Like Ellie's pain was a show she had bought tickets to see. And now she was rushing to comfort the man who had just struck his pregnant wife, in front of a judge, in front of witnesses, in front of everyone. "Get her out of here," Judge Morrison ordered. Her voice was like ice. "Get them both out. I want this courtroom cleared. Court is in recess until further notice." More bailiffs appeared. They intercepted Vanessa before she could reach Garrett. She struggled against them too, shouting something Ellie could not hear, something that looked like his name. "Someone call medical," Judge Morrison continued. "I want Mrs. Ashford examined immediately. She is 8 months pregnant, for God's sake." Mrs. Ashford. The name felt wrong now, like a costume she had been wearing without realizing it, a costume that no longer fit. The next few minutes were a blur of motion and noise, and hands reaching for her. Ellie found herself sitting in a small room off the main courtroom, a conference room with beige walls and a long table covered in papers. A paramedic was kneeling in front of her, taking her blood pressure, shining a light in her eyes. Her mother sat beside her, gripping her hands so tightly it hurt. But Ellie did not ask her to let go. The pain was grounding, real, something to focus on besides the chaos inside her head. "Your blood pressure is elevated," the paramedic said. He was young, kind eyes, a gentle voice, which is understandable given the circumstances. "But with your pregnancy this far along, we need to monitor you closely. Stress can trigger early labor." Early labor. The word sent a spike of fear through her chest. Her daughter, her baby, the one good thing to come out of this nightmare of a marriage. "I need to stay calm," Ellie said. It came out flat, mechanical. "Yes, ma'am. Is there anything I can get you? Water? Something to eat? I need to use the bathroom." She did not actually need to use the bathroom. She needed to be alone. Just for a minute. Just long enough to fall apart without an audience. "I will come with you," her mother said. "No, please, I just need a minute alone." Judith hesitated. Her grip on Ellie's hand tightened for a moment, then released. "1 minute, then I am coming to check on you." The bathroom was small, single occupancy, a lock on the door that Ellie turned with shaking fingers. She leaned against the door, let her weight rest against it, took a breath that felt like it might shatter her ribs. Then she pulled out her phone, Charisse. She did not know why. Habit, maybe. The desperate hope that there would be something there to explain what had just happened. An apology, an explanation, anything that would make this make sense. She checked her messages. Nothing from Garrett. Of course not. He was being processed for assault right now. His phone was probably in an evidence bag somewhere. What would he say anyway? "Sorry I hit you in front of a judge. Sorry I ruined your life. Sorry I was never who you thought I was." She locked her phone, unlocked it, locked it again, unlocked it again, lock, unlock, waiting for something that would never come. She caught herself doing it, caught herself waiting, and the realization made her stomach turn. 6 years of marriage, 6 years of building a life together. And she was standing in a courthouse bathroom, checking her phone for a text from a man who had just assaulted her. What was wrong with her? Her reflection stared back at her from the mirror above the sink. The fluorescent lights were harsh, unforgiving. They showed every flaw, every crack. A red mark was forming on her left cheek, the exact shape of a hand, His hand, the hand that had touched her face so gently on their wedding night, the hand that had held hers through her father's funeral, the hand that had rested on her belly when they found out she was pregnant, the same hand that had struck her today. Her mascara had smudged under her eyes, dark streaks running down toward her cheekbones. She looked like a raccoon, like a sad, pregnant raccoon who had wandered into a courthouse and gotten lost. A hysterical laugh bubbled up in her throat. She swallowed it down. If she started laughing, she might not be able to stop. And if she stopped laughing, she would start crying. And if she started crying, she would fall apart completely. She could not afford to fall apart. Not yet. Not here. 8 months pregnant. 32 years old. Standing in a courthouse bathroom while her marriage exploded around her. This was not how her life was supposed to go. A knock on the door made her jump. Her heart slammed against her ribs. "Eleanor?" It was Mitchell Crawford's voice, her attorney, the man who had promised to protect her interests in the divorce. "We need to talk." "It is urgent." Urgent. Everything was urgent now. She splashed water on her face. The cold was shocking, clarifying. She dried her skin with a rough paper towel, took one more breath, then another. "Coming," she said. Mitchell was waiting in the hallway. He was holding a manila folder. His face was grave, the kind of grave that meant bad news, the kind of grave that meant the worst was not over yet. "Not here," he said quietly. His eyes darted to the bailiff standing at the end of the hall, to the reporter who had somehow gotten past security. "My office. Now." The drive to his office took 15 minutes. 15 minutes of silence in the back seat of her mother's Mercedes. Judith drove, her knuckles white on the steering wheel, her jaw tight. No one spoke. There was nothing to say. Mitchell's office was on the 12th floor of a downtown building. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, the skyline Ellie had known her whole life. The buildings her father had helped develop, the streets she had walked since childhood. She had always loved this view, the way the afternoon light caught the glass towers, the way the city sprawled out beneath her like a map of possibilities. Today it felt oppressive, like the buildings were leaning in, watching her, waiting to see what would happen next. "Sit down," Mitchell said, "both of you." They sat, Ellie in one leather chair, Judith in the other, Mitchell behind his desk, spreading documents across the surface. Financial statements, bank records, corporate filings, account numbers and transaction histories, columns of numbers that blurred together. "The forensic accountant finished her report this morning," Mitchell said. "I was going to present it in court today, before the incident." Before the incident. Such a clinical way to describe her husband slapping her across the face. "What did she find?" Judith asked. Her voice was steady, controlled. The voice of a woman who had survived her husband's death and her daughter's betrayal and would survive this too. Mitchell looked at Ellie. His expression was careful, gentle, like a doctor about to deliver a terminal diagnosis. "Ashford Technologies does not exist," he said. The words hung in the air. Impossible. Absurd. "What do you mean?" Ellie asked. "The company. Garrett's company. The one he has been running for the past 7 years. The one he claimed was worth $40 million. The one that was supposed to go public next year." Mitchell paused, let the silence stretch. "It is not real. It has never been real." "That is impossible," Ellie said. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears, high, thin. "I have been to his office. I have met his employees. I have attended company parties, Christmas parties, summer barbecues, product launch celebrations." Mitchell slid a document across the desk. His finger pointed to an address. "The office address is a virtual office service. It is called Executive Suites International. For $500 a month, they provide a prestigious address. They answer the phone in whatever company name you specify. They accept mail and forward it to a P.O. box. But there is no actual office, no actual employees, no actual company." Ellie stared at the document. The words swam in front of her eyes. "The people at the parties," she said slowly, "the employees, the executives, the engineers who showed me prototypes." "Hired," Mitchell said, "through a talent agency called Star Power Staffing. We found the invoices in a hidden email account. Garrett paid them $20,000 a year to provide actors for company events. They were given scripts, character backgrounds, talking points about the fake products they were supposedly developing. Scripts, character backgrounds, like her marriage was a movie and she was the only one who did not know the cameras were rolling. The investors, Ellie whispered. He had investors, people who gave him money. No legitimate investors. The investment documents were faked. The wire transfers came from accounts he controlled. It was all a performance. A very expensive, very elaborate performance. The room was spinning. Ellie gripped the arms of her chair, felt the leather creak under her fingers. The money, she said. The words were barely audible. My trust fund, the distributions. Mitchell nodded. His face was grim. $14 million over 6 years, deposited into joint accounts that you both had access to, then transferred into accounts in Garrett's name only. Accounts you did not know existed. Accounts at banks in the Cayman Islands, in Switzerland, and Singapore. $14 million. Her father's money. Thomas Hartwell had built his fortune from nothing. A single hardware store in a small town in Ohio. That store became 2 stores, then 10, then a chain that spanned the Midwest, then a retail empire that employed 10,000 people. He had worked 70-hour weeks for 30 years. He had missed birthdays and holidays and school plays. He had sacrificed everything to build something that would last, something he could pass on to his daughter. And on his deathbed, he had made her promise. Protect it, Eleanor, protect what I built. Not because the money matters, but because it represents everything I worked for, everything I sacrificed, everything I wanted you to have. She had promised. She had held his hand and promised. And then she had handed it all to a con man. There is more, Mitchell said. How can there be more? He pulled out another document. This one had a red stamp across the top. Confidential. Criminal database match. The DNA sample, Mitchell said. The one we collected during the divorce proceedings. Standard procedure for paternity confirmation. Ellie felt her mother's hand close over hers, squeezing, bracing. The sample came back with a hit in the federal criminal database. The room was completely silent. Somewhere in the building, a phone was ringing. Outside the windows, traffic moved through the streets below. Life continued, the world kept turning. But in this room, everything had stopped. Garrett Ashford is not his real name, Mitchell said. His real name is Gary Brennan. He was born in Cleveland, Ohio, 41 years ago, not 38 like he told you. Gary Brennan, a stranger's name, a stranger's face that she had kissed good morning for 6 years. He has 3 prior marriages, Mitchell continued, all to wealthy women, all ended in divorce within 3 to 5 years. 2 of the ex-wives filed restraining orders. 1 filed criminal charges that were later dropped. What kind of charges? Judith asked. Fraud, theft, assault. Assault, like what he had done today, what he had done in front of witnesses, in front of a judge. There is also a pending investigation in Arizona, Mitchell said. Another woman, another fortune, another disappearing act that did not quite work out the way he planned. Ellie could not speak, could not move, could not breathe. 6 years. She had been married to this man for 6 years. She had shared her bed with him, shared her body with him, shared her deepest fears and brightest hopes with him. And it was all fake, every single moment, every single word. I loved him, she said. Her voice cracked on the last word. I was going to have his baby. I was going to spend the rest of my life with him. I know, Mitchell said. I am so sorry. Sorry, such a small word for such an enormous devastation. There is one more thing, Mitchell said, and this is the part that even I do not fully understand yet. Ellie looked up. What else could there possibly be? What else could he take from her? Vanessa Cole, Mitchell said, the woman in the gallery today. The one who tried to reach Garrett after the incident. His mistress, Ellie said. The word tasted bitter in her mouth. That is what we assumed. That is what the evidence seemed to suggest. The text messages, the hotel receipts, the late-night phone calls. Mitchell paused, picked up another document, set it down in front of Ellie. But she is not his mistress. She is his sister. 3 days had passed since the courtroom incident. Ellie was staying at her mother's estate now, the house she had grown up in. The house where she had learned to walk, to read, to ride a bicycle. The house where her father had read her bedtime stories and her mother had taught her to set a proper table. 22 rooms, 8 acres of manicured grounds, a staff of 5 who moved through the house like ghosts, anticipating needs before they were spoken. It should have felt like home. It should have felt safe. Instead, it felt like a very expensive hiding place. She sat in the nursery she had been preparing for the past month, a room on the second floor overlooking the rose garden. Pale yellow walls that she had painted herself against her mother's objections. White furniture that she had assembled with her own hands against the housekeeper's protests. A rocking chair by the window, a mobile of silver stars hanging above the crib, a bookshelf already filled with children's books, some of them the same ones her father had read to her 30 years ago. Everything was perfect. Everything was ready for a baby who would arrive in less than 4 weeks. Everything was a lie. The crib had been a gift from Garrett. He had insisted on assembling it himself, made a big show of reading the instructions wrong, putting the bars on upside down, attaching the mattress support backward. She had laughed until tears streamed down her face, laughed at his theatrical incompetence, laughed at the way he pretended to argue with the instruction manual in a fake Swedish accent. Now she wondered how many times he had practiced that routine, how many cribs he had assembled wrong for how many pregnant wives. She wondered if the laughter had been real, or if that too had been part of the performance. Her phone buzzed against the arm of the rocking chair. A text from Diane Patterson, her best friend since freshman year of college, her maid of honor at the wedding that had turned out to be a sham. Coming over, bringing food you will not eat and wine you cannot drink. Love you more than pizza, which is saying something. Ellie almost smiled. Almost. Diane had been texting every few hours since the incident, checking in, making sure Ellie was still breathing, still functioning, still putting one foot in front of the other. It was exhausting being checked on, but it was also the only thing keeping her tethered to reality. Diane arrived 30 minutes later. She swept into the nursery like a hurricane in designer jeans, 2 bags from their favorite restaurant swinging from her arms, soup, salad, fresh bread with herb butter, all of Ellie's favorites. "You look terrible," Diane said. "Thank you. That is exactly what every pregnant woman wants to hear." "I am not going to lie to you. That is not what best friends do." Diane set the bags on the dresser, pulled Ellie into a hug that was fierce and gentle at the same time. "How are you really?" "I do not know how to answer that question anymore." "Then do not answer it. Just eat something. You are growing a human being. That human being needs nutrients." They sat in the sunroom off the main hall, floor-to-ceiling windows, afternoon light streaming in, the September garden blazing with color outside. Ellie watched the light play across the Persian rug, patterns she had memorized as a child, lying on her stomach while her father read the newspaper. "I did some research," Diane said. She was attacking her salad with the kind of intensity she usually reserved for hostile takeovers. Diane ran a boutique interior design firm that catered to Manhattan's wealthiest clients. She was very good at her job. "Diane, please do not. Just listen. After Mitchell told you about the sister thing, I could not stop thinking about it. It did not make sense. Mistresses do not usually show up to divorce hearings. And they definitely do not try to physically reach the man who just assaulted his wife. Maybe she is crazy. Maybe. Or maybe there is more to the story." Diane pulled out her phone, scrolled to a document she had clearly spent hours preparing. Vanessa Cole and Gary Brennan were in the foster care system together. Not biological siblings, they met when they were 11 years old, at a group home called Sunshine House in Columbus, Ohio. Ellie felt her stomach turn. She pushed her soup away. "How do you know this?" "I have connections. Some of my clients have very interesting backgrounds and very good private investigators on retainer. Plus, Google is surprisingly helpful when you know what to search for." Diane looked up from her phone. Her eyes were sharp, focused. "They have been running cons together for 11 years, since Vanessa was 18 and Gary was 24. Cons. The pattern is always the same. Gary targets wealthy women, single or recently divorced, emotionally vulnerable, looking for connection. He courts them, sweeps them off their feet, marries them as quickly as possible. And then what? He gets access to their money, joint accounts, investment portfolios, trust funds. He drains them slowly over years. Small amounts at first, then larger. By the time the wife notices something is wrong, he has already moved most of the assets offshore. Ellie closed her eyes, saw the spreadsheets Mitchell had shown her. $14 million, transferred in increments of 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, never enough to trigger a fraud alert, never enough to raise red flags, until it was all gone. Where does Vanessa fit in? Ellie asked. She plays the mistress. The word hung in the air. Mistress, such an old-fashioned term for such a calculated betrayal. It is designed to destabilize the wife, Diane continued, make her doubt herself, make her feel like she is the problem. The marriage is already falling apart, so why not let it fall apart faster? Why not speed up the divorce before any forensic accountants get involved? That is insane. It is brilliant, in a sociopathic way. Diane set down her phone, reached across the table to take Ellie's hand. They have done this to at least 5 other women that I could find, probably more. Gary targets the mark. Vanessa creates the crisis. And by the time everyone figures out what happened, they have disappeared. Ellie stared at their intertwined hands. Diane's manicure was perfect. Pale pink, understated. Ellie's nails were bitten down to the quick. Why me? She asked. Because you have $32 million sitting in a trust fund. Because your father had just died. Because you were grieving and lonely and looking for someone to take care of you. I was not looking for someone to take care of me. Ellie, Diane's voice was gentle but firm. I love you more than my Hermes collection, and you know how I feel about my Hermes collection. But you were. We all saw it. After Thomas died, you were lost. You stopped going out. You stopped seeing friends. You threw yourself into the foundation work because it was the only thing that made you feel close to him. Ellie wanted to argue, wanted to defend herself, but she could not, because Diane was right. And then this charming man appeared out of nowhere, Diane continued, at a charity event for your father's foundation, saying all the right things, doing all the right things, making you feel special and seen and loved. He told me my father's business book changed his life. I know. He said he read it during his first startup failure. He said it gave him the courage to try again. I know, honey. But there was no startup, was there? There was no failure. There was no anything. It was all just research. Things he learned about me before we met. Things he used to get past my defenses. Diane did not answer. She did not have to. Ellie pulled her hand away, pressed both palms against her belly. The baby was quiet now, sleeping maybe, or just listening, taking it all in. I am not stupid, Ellie said. Her voice was harder now, edged with something that might become anger if she let it. I graduated summa cum laude from Yale. I ran my father's foundation for 3 years. I managed a staff of 20 people and a budget of $5 million. No one is saying you are stupid. Then how did I not see? How did I not know? She stood up, started pacing. The baby shifted, protesting the movement. 6 years, Diane. 6 years of marriage, 6 years of sharing a bed and a home and a life. And I never once suspected that it was all fake. Because he was good at this, Diane said. He has been doing this for 11 years. You were not his first victim. You were just his biggest score. His biggest score. The words hit her like a second slap, like an echo of the one in the courtroom. $14 million. That was what she was worth to him. Not her love, not her trust, not the baby growing inside her. $14 million and a clean exit. What do I do now? Ellie asked. She stopped pacing, stood in front of the window, looked out at the garden where she had played as a child. How do I come back from this? Diane stood up, walked over to stand beside her, put an arm around her shoulders. You fight, Diane said. You take back everything he stole. Your money, your dignity, your story. And you make sure he never does this to anyone else. That night, Ellie could not sleep. She lay in her childhood bed, the same bed she had slept in until she left for college, the same bed she had come home to on holidays and summers. The mattress was different now, of course, more supportive, better for her pregnant body. But the frame was the same. The headboard her father had carved by hand when she was 7 years old. At 2:14 in the morning, she gave up on sleep entirely. She sat up, reached for her laptop on the nightstand, opened it to the blue glow of the search engine. Signs, "You married a con man." The results were overwhelming. Articles, blog posts, support group forums, thousands of stories from thousands of women who had been where she was now. He was charming at first, so attentive, so perfect. I thought I was the luckiest woman in the world. By the time I realized what was happening, everything was gone. She read for hours, story after story, pattern after pattern, the same tactics, the same manipulations, the same devastating endings. Love bombing. That was what the experts called it. Overwhelming someone with attention and affection to break down their defenses, to make them feel special, chosen, destined, and she had fallen for it. Hook, line, and sinker. At 3:30 in the morning, she closed the laptop, stared at the ceiling, the shadows cast by the nightlight she had started using again. Childish, maybe, but the darkness felt too heavy now, too full of things she could not see. She thought about the recording Mitchell had played. Gary's voice, casual and confident, discussing his next target. The Hartwell girl has 32 million coming at age 35, old money, dead father, guilty mother, guilty mother. She had wondered about that phrase. What did it mean? And then she understood. Judith, her mother, who had been traveling when Thomas died, who had not made it home in time to say goodbye, who carried that guilt like a stone around her neck. Gary had researched that too. He had known that Judith would be too consumed by her own grief and shame to question the man her daughter brought home, too desperate to see Ellie happy to look too closely at the man making her smile. He had played them both. Mother and daughter, 2 marks for the price of 1. She will be the easiest mark yet. Easiest. The word burned in her chest like acid. She put her hand on her belly, felt the baby shift, a small movement, a reminder that she was not alone in this body, not alone in this darkness. I am not easy, she whispered to the ceiling, to the baby, to herself. I am not stupid. I am not weak. I was targeted, hunted. There is a difference. The baby kicked, once as if in agreement. We are going to be okay, Ellie said. I do not know how yet, but we are going to be okay. She wished she believed it. 1 week after the courtroom incident, Ellie stood in the doorway of what used to be their bedroom, the master suite in the house she had shared with Garrett, the house she would never live in again. She had come to collect some things, clothes, documents, photos, personal items that belonged to her life before him, if such things still existed. Mitchell had insisted on sending a paralegal with her. A young woman named Jessica who carried a clipboard and a camera. For documentation purposes, Mitchell said, in case Garrett had taken anything else, in case there was evidence of additional fraud hidden in the walls of this beautiful lying house. But Garrett was in custody. Still, the assault charge was serious enough to deny bail, and now there were federal charges pending. Wire fraud, identity theft, money laundering. The list grew longer every day. Jessica waited downstairs, photographing the living room, the kitchen, the home office where Garrett had pretended to work. Ellie needed to do this part alone. She crossed the threshold into the bedroom. Her feet sank into the plush carpet, cream-colored, soft as clouds. She had picked it out herself, spent hours looking at samples, holding them up to the light, feeling the texture between her fingers. Garrett had laughed at her obsession with the carpet, called her adorably particular, said he loved that she cared so much about creating a beautiful home. Was that real? The laughter, the teasing, or was it just another note in his performance? She would never know. That was the cruelest part. She would spend the rest of her life wondering which moments had been genuine and which had been scripted. She opened the closet, his side. The suits were still there, row after row of them, Italian wool, custom tailored, navy and charcoal and black, a few lighter colors for summer, all perfectly pressed, all perfectly arranged. She had paid for every single one. Of course she had. She ran her fingers along the fabric, cool and smooth. She remembered their first date, a restaurant downtown, white tablecloths, candles, a wine list longer than her arm. He had worn a navy blue suit that night, perfectly fitted. Later, she found out he had spent $2,000 on it, money he did not have, money he had borrowed or stolen or conjured from thin air. An investment, he called it later, when she asked about his spending habits. You have to look successful to be successful. An investment in deceiving her. She moved to the dresser, his side again. The watch collection arranged in a velvet-lined case, 6 watches, all gifts from her, for birthdays, anniversaries, Father's Day, even though the baby had not been born yet. She had given him the Father's Day watch 3 months ago, crying as she handed him the box, overwhelmed by the idea of him as a father, by the future they were building together. He had cried too, tears streaming down his face, pulling her close, whispering that he did not deserve her. He did not deserve her. That part was true, just not in the way either of them had meant it. She picked up the watch she had given him last Christmas. A Patek Philippe, $42,000, the most expensive gift she had ever given anyone. She had agonized over it for weeks, wanting to find something perfect, something that showed how much she loved him. He had cried when he opened it, sobbed actually, said no one had ever given him anything so beautiful, said he would treasure it forever. Were those tears real, or were they practice? Had he rehearsed that reaction in a mirror? Had he timed the sobs for maximum effect? She set the watch down. Her hands were shaking. The wedding album was on the bookshelf by the window, white leather cover, gold embossed lettering, their names and the date, June 15th, 4 years ago. She carried it to the bed, sat down on the mattress where they had made love hundreds of times, where they had conceived the baby growing inside her now. She opened the album slowly, like diffusing a bomb. Their wedding day. The ceremony had been at her family's estate, the same place she was staying now. 200 guests, white roses everywhere, because they were her father's favorite. String quartet playing Pachelbel as she walked down the aisle. Thomas Hartwell had walked her down that aisle. It was one of his last public appearances. 3 months later, he was bedridden. 6 months later, he was gone. She had been so grateful that he lived long enough to see her married, so grateful that he got to meet Garrett, to shake his hand, to welcome him into the family. Now she wondered what her father had really thought. Had he seen something she missed? Had he sensed the predator beneath the charm? Or had Gary fooled him too? She studied Garrett's face in each photo, searching for something, a crack in the mask, a hint of the monster underneath the smile. But there was nothing, just a man who looked happy, in love, exactly what she had believed him to be. Their first dance. She remembered the song, At Last, by Etta James. She had chosen it because it felt like fate, like she had finally found her person after years of searching. At last, my love has come along. What a joke. He had dipped her at the end of the dance. Everyone applauded. She had laughed, surprised and delighted. Was his smile real in that moment? Was anything? The cake cutting. He had gotten frosting on her nose. On purpose, she thought at the time. Playful, sweet. Now she wondered if it was calculated, a cute moment for the photos, a story to tell at dinner parties. Remember when Garrett got frosting on Ellie's nose? They are so adorable together. The bouquet toss, she had thrown it directly at Diane. On purpose. They had planned it in advance. A silly tradition turned into an inside joke between best friends. Diane had caught it one-handed, raised it over her head like a trophy. Everyone laughed. That memory was real. That one belonged to her. Garrett had not touched it. She clung to that thought. One real thing, one moment that was hers and hers alone. She turned to the last page of the album, a candid shot from the end of the night. No poses, no staging, just 2 people sitting on the steps of the gazebo, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist, fairy lights glowing behind them like stars. She had loved this photo so much, had it framed, put it on her nightstand, looked at it every night before she fell asleep. The woman in the photo looked so happy, so trusting, so certain that she had finally found her home. Ellie wanted to reach through time and shake her, warn her, tell her to run, but she could not. The woman in the photo was gone. She had died in courtroom 7 when her husband's palm connected with her face. Ellie ripped the photo out of the album. The sound was louder than she expected. A tearing that seemed to echo in the silent room. She ripped it in half, then in quarters, then eighths, then sixteens. She kept tearing until the pieces were too small to hold, until they scattered across the bed like confetti, like the remnants of a celebration that never really happened. Jessica appeared in the doorway, her expression carefully neutral. "Ms. Hartwell, is everything okay?" Ellie looked down at the confetti in her lap. Photo paper and lies, memories and manipulation. "Yes," she said, "I'm fine." But her voice broke on the last word, shattered like the photo, like her heart. She let Jessica help her up, let her mother's driver take her back to the estate, let herself be guided up the stairs to her childhood bedroom. And then, finally, she let herself fall apart. That night, she did not try to sleep. She went to the bathroom instead. The one attached to her bedroom. An old bathroom with a clawfoot tub and marble floors and fixtures that belonged to another era. She did not fill the tub, did not turn on the water, did not do anything at all. She just sat there, in the empty bathtub, fully clothed, staring at the tile on the wall. Garrett had helped her pick out tiles like this for their bathroom renovation last year. He said they reminded him of a hotel in Santorini, where he had stayed during a business trip 5 years ago. Before they met, except there were no business trips, no hotel in Santorini, no 5 years ago. She wondered where he had actually seen tiles like this. In a magazine, probably. Or on a design website. Research for his character, background details to make the lie more convincing. She wondered how many hours he had spent building Garrett Ashford, crafting his backstory, rehearsing his anecdotes, preparing for the role of a lifetime. And she had been his audience, his captive, adoring audience of one. The silence stretched, the faucet dripped, once, twice, a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat, like time passing. She started to hum, quietly at first, then louder, her father's lullaby, the song he used to sing when she could not sleep, when the darkness felt too big and the world felt too scary. "Rest now, little bird." She could almost hear his voice, rough and warm, off-key, always. He could never carry a tune. "Tomorrow the sun will rise." She pressed her hand against her belly. The baby shifted, settled, and you will fly again. For the first time in a week, she did not cry. 2 weeks after the courtroom incident, Detective Raymond Booth was sitting in Judith Hartwell's living room, looking profoundly uncomfortable. He was a large man, broad shoulders, weathered face, hands that had clearly done manual labor at some point before they held badges and guns. His suit was off the rack. His shoes were scuffed. His watch was a Timex that probably cost less than Ellie's daily coffee habit. He looked like he had wandered into the wrong house, the wrong world. A blue-collar man surrounded by oil paintings and antique furniture and vases that cost more than his annual salary. Ellie appreciated his discomfort. It was honest, real, nothing like the smooth charm that Garrett had worn like a second skin. "Thank you for seeing me, Miss Hartwell," Detective Booth said. His voice was gruff but not unkind. Ellie sat across from him in a wingback chair. Her mother was beside her on the settee. Mitchell Crawford stood by the window, watching and listening. "I understand you are working with federal prosecutors," Ellie said. "Yes, ma'am. Gary Brennan is in custody on the state assault charge, but we are building a federal case. Multiple counts, fraud, identity theft, wire fraud, money laundering, conspiracy." "Conspiracy," Judith repeated. "With his sister." "Yes, ma'am, Vanessa Cole. We have evidence of her involvement going back at least 8 years, possibly longer." Mitchell stepped forward. "What kind of evidence?" "Financial records, phone records, travel records. They were careful but not careful enough. Once we knew what we were looking for, the patterns became obvious." Detective Booth opened a folder he had been holding on his lap. Spread documents across the coffee table. Ellie recognized some of them from Mitchell's office. Others were new. "I need to walk through everything with you, Miss Hartwell," the detective said. "Every account he had access to, every document you signed, every investment decision you made together, everything you remember about his behavior, his habits, his contacts." It took 4 hours. 4 hours of questions. 4 hours of documents. 4 hours of watching her life get dissected like a lab specimen. By the end, Ellie's throat was raw from talking. Her back ached from sitting. Her feet were swollen from the pregnancy. And she had realized something terrible. The damage was even worse than she thought. "He forged my mother's signature," she said, staring at one of the documents. "A transfer authorization for an investment account. Judith's account. Judith's signature at the bottom. Except it was not Judith's signature. It was a very good forgery, but now that Ellie knew to look, she could see the differences. The J was slightly wrong. The loop of the H was too tight. "These are my personal accounts," Judith said. Her voice was cold, controlled, but Ellie could see her mother's hand shaking. "My investment portfolio. Money that was separate from the trust, money that had nothing to do with Eleanor's inheritance." $300,000, Detective Booth said, "transferred over 18 months. Small amounts. Nothing large enough to trigger automatic reviews. $300,000. On top of the $14 million from Ellie. On top of whatever he had stolen from his previous victims. "I never authorized these transfers," Judith said. "I never even saw these documents." "We know, ma'am. That is why we are adding forgery to the federal charges." Judith stood up abruptly, walked to the window, stood with her back to the room looking out at the garden. Ellie watched her mother's shoulders, rigid, proud, refusing to show weakness even now. How long had it been since Judith Hartwell had been made a fool of? Decades, probably. She was a woman who prided herself on her judgment, her discernment, her ability to see through pretense. And Gary Brennan had played her just as easily as he had played Ellie. "Is there anything else?" Ellie asked. Detective Booth hesitated, exchanged a glance with Mitchell. "There is one more thing," he said. "We have identified several other victims. People who invested money in Gary's fake companies over the years. People who trusted him based on his reputation, or rather based on the reputation he invented." "How many?" "7 that we have confirmed, probably more. One is an elderly widower in Phoenix, lost his entire retirement savings. $200,000. $200,000. From a man who had probably spent his whole life building that nest egg, who had trusted the wrong person at the worst possible moment. Another is a divorcee in Dallas," Detective Booth continued. "She lost her house, had to move in with her sister. She tried to report the fraud, but no one believed her. Gary had done too good a job making her look unstable." Making her look unstable. Ellie thought about the tabloid stories, the anonymous tips, the articles questioning her mental health. Gary was doing the same thing to her. Right now, from his jail cell, trying to destroy her credibility before the case went to trial. "We want to build the strongest possible case," Detective Booth said. "Multiple victims, multiple counts. We want to make sure he never does this to anyone else. What do you need from me?" "Everything you can give us. Testimony, documents, access to your accounts and records. It will not be easy, but it is the only way to get justice." Justice, such a simple word, such a complicated concept. After Detective Booth left, Diane arrived with food Ellie would not eat. It had become a ritual. Diane showing up with bags from restaurants. Ellie pushing food around her plate while Diane talked. Neither of them pretending it was about the food. "I found something else," Diane said. She was cutting her steak into precise tiny pieces, a nervous habit she had developed in college. That business partner Garrett always talked about, Richard Thornton. Ellie searched her memory. Richard Thornton. The name was familiar. Garrett had mentioned him occasionally, a mentor figure from his early career. Someone who had believed in him when no one else did. What about him? "He is not a business partner. He is another victim." Ellie set down her fork. What little appetite she had was gone. "He invested $600,000 in Ashford Technologies," Diane continued. "His entire life savings. Money he had been building for 40 years. Retirement funds. His children's inheritance. Everything. $600,000. From a man who had thought he was investing in a promising tech startup, who had trusted the charming young CEO who reminded him of his younger self. How did you find this out? I tracked him down, called him, and introduced myself as a friend of one of Gary's other victims. Diane's expression was grim. He cried on the phone, Ellie, a 70-year-old man, sobbing like a child. He was too ashamed to report it, too embarrassed that he had been fooled. Too ashamed, too embarrassed. Ellie understood those feelings intimately. There are others, Diane said. I have found 3 more. People who gave Gary money and never saw a return. People who were too humiliated to come forward. People who thought they were the only ones. They were not the only ones, Evans. No, they were part of a pattern that Gary had been running for over a decade, and you are the one who finally broke it. Ellie did not feel like she had broken anything. She felt broken herself. The doorbell rang. A process server stood on the steps, young, nervous, clearly uncomfortable, delivering bad news to a visibly pregnant woman. He handed Ellie a thick envelope, turned and practically ran back to his car. Inside the envelope were legal documents from Gary's attorney. Ellie read them standing in the foyer, her hands trembling, her heart pounding against her ribs. Gary was fighting the divorce, claiming the prenuptial agreement was invalid, claiming it had been signed under duress, claiming she had manipulated him into the marriage. But that was not the worst part. He was also demanding a paternity test, claiming the baby might not be his, claiming she had been unfaithful during their marriage, claiming he had a right to protect himself from raising another man's child. The baby kicked, hard, as if responding to the accusation. He hit me in open court, Ellie said. Her voice was flat, emotionless. In front of a judge, in front of witnesses. He stole $14 million from me, $300,000 from my mother. He destroyed multiple lives across multiple states, and he thinks he has parental rights? Judith took the documents from her hands, read them quickly. Her expression did not change. This is a delay tactic, Judith said, nothing more. He is trying to drag out the proceedings, make you spend more money on lawyers, wear you down. He is trying to use my daughter as a bargaining chip. Yes. Ellie felt something shift in her chest, something that had been frozen since the courtroom, something that was starting to thaw. Not grief, not sadness, not fear, rage. I will not let him, she said. Her voice was still flat, but harder now, with an edge that cut like broken glass. I will not let him use my daughter against me. Not now, not ever. She walked to the phone, picked it up, called Mitchell Crawford's direct line. Counter everything, she said when he answered. Every claim, every accusation, every lie. I want a wall of legal protection around me and my baby. And I want it built today. Mitchell was on the phone within the hour. Lawyers filed motions. Responses were drafted. The wall began to take shape. But there was something else. A message that made Ellie's blood run cold. Vanessa Cole wants to meet with you, Mitchell said. Alone. Judith's response was immediate. Absolutely not. I want to hear what she has to say, Ellie said. She is the enemy. She helped him do this to you. She helped him destroy your life. Maybe. Or maybe she knows something we need. Mitchell cleared his throat. It could help the case if she is willing to cooperate, if she has information about Gary's other crimes. She helped steal my money, Ellie said. She helped ruin my marriage. Why would she help me now? I do not know, but she specifically asked for you. No lawyers, no police, just you. Ellie thought about it. The woman in the red dress, rushing to Gary's side in the courtroom. The sister who had helped him con 11 years' worth of victims. What could she possibly want? There was only one way to find out. Against everyone's advice, Ellie agreed to the meeting. A coffee shop in a strip mall, the kind of place that served burnt coffee and stale pastries. Public enough to be safe, anonymous enough to go unnoticed. Diane insisted on coming along. She waited in the car, parked across the lot, ready to intervene if anything went wrong, ready to call the police at the first sign of trouble. Vanessa was already there when Ellie arrived. She was sitting in a corner booth, back to the wall, eyes on the door. The posture of someone who had spent her life watching for threats. She looked different than she had in court, smaller somehow, diminished. The expensive clothes hung loose on her frame, as if she had lost weight rapidly. Dark circles under her eyes, not looking sallow in the fluorescent light, and there were bruises. Ellie saw them as she approached the table, yellow and purple marks on Vanessa's wrist, peeking out from under her sleeve, healing but still visible. More bruises on her neck, partially hidden by a scarf, but not hidden enough. Ellie sat down across from her, said nothing, waited. Vanessa wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. Her fingers were trembling, badly, like she was fighting to keep them still. "Thank you for coming," Vanessa said. Her voice was different, too, smaller, shakier. Nothing like the confident woman in the red dress who had tried to reach Gary in the courtroom. Ellie did not respond. She had learned not to fill silences anymore. Let other people fill them. Let them reveal themselves in the empty spaces. Vanessa stared at her coffee. The surface of the liquid was rippling from her trembling hands. "He hits me too," she said quietly. "Has for years." The words hung in the air, heavy, unexpected. Ellie still did not respond. She was watching Vanessa's face, looking for the angle, the manipulation. But all she saw was exhaustion and fear and something that looked almost like relief. "I know you hate me," Vanessa continued. "I would hate me too, what we did to you, what we did to all of them. It was wrong. I knew it was wrong. I have always known it was wrong." "Then why did you do it?" The question came out sharper than Ellie intended, edged with anger that she had been trying to hold back. Vanessa flinched, but she did not look away. "Because I owed him. Because I was scared. Because I did not know how to be anything else." Those sound like excuses. They are excuses, but they are also true. Vanessa took a shaky breath. "Can I tell you a story about how this all started?" Ellie nodded, waited. "Gary and I met when we were 11 years old, at a group home in Ohio. Sunshine House. That was actually the name. Sunshine House. Like irony was lost on whoever came up with it." She laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "We were both products of the system, bounced from foster home to foster home. Nobody wanted us. Nobody cared what happened to us. The group home was supposed to be temporary, a holding facility until they found us permanent placements." "How long were you there?" 7 years, until I aged out at 18. 7 years. Ellie tried to imagine it. Growing up in an institution, no parents, no family, no one who cared. "The older kids were brutal," Vanessa said. "They stole food, beat up the younger ones, took whatever they wanted from whoever was weaker. The staff did not care. As long as no one died on their watch, they collected their paychecks and looked the other way." "What does this have to do with Gary?" "Gary protected me from the day I arrived. I do not know why. Maybe he saw something in me that reminded him of himself. Maybe he was just lonely. But he made sure no one touched me. No one took my things. No one hurt me." "So you owed him?" "I thought I did. When you are a kid and someone keeps you safe, that person becomes everything. Your family, your reason for existing." Vanessa's voice cracked. "By the time I realized what Gary really was, I was already in too deep. I had been part of it for too long. I had helped destroy too many people." "You could have left. Could I?" Vanessa pushed up her sleeve. More bruises, older ones underneath the fresh ones. A scar that looked like a cigarette burn. "I tried once. When I was 23, I told Gary I was done, that I could not do it anymore, that I wanted a normal life." She traced the scar with her finger. "He broke 3 of my ribs, dislocated my shoulder, kept me locked in an apartment for 2 months until I agreed to stay." Ellie felt her stomach turn, but she did not look away. "I am not telling you this to make you feel sorry for me," Vanessa said. "What I did was wrong. I knew it was wrong. I did it anyway. I do not deserve your sympathy." "Then why are you telling me?" "Because I want you to understand, not forgive, just understand. Gary is not just a con man. He is a monster. And I have spent my entire adult life helping him hurt people." The waitress approached, asked if they needed anything else. Ellie ordered a decaf coffee, black with 2 sugars. She noticed Vanessa's cup, black with 2 sugars too. The same way Ellie always took her coffee. The same way she had described her coffee preferences to Garrett on their second date. Gary must have taught Vanessa that detail. A small thing, insignificant on its own, but part of a pattern, part of a strategy to make the marks feel connected, to make them feel like they had found someone who truly understood them. Ellie felt sick. "Why now?" she asked. "Why tell me this now, after everything?" Vanessa looked up, met Ellie's eyes for the first time since the conversation began. "Because I watched him hit you in that courtroom, a pregnant woman, 8 months along, and something inside me broke." Her voice was steady now, clear. "I have watched Gary do terrible things. I have helped him do terrible things. But that moment, seeing his hand connect with your face, seeing you touch your cheek like you could not believe what had happened, I realized I had become exactly what I always swore I would never be." Which is what? A monster. The kind of person who hurts innocent people. The kind of person who could watch that happen and not do anything to stop it. Silence stretched between them. The coffee shop buzzed with normal sounds, normal people having normal conversations. No idea that two women in the corner booth were discussing 11 years of fraud and abuse. Vanessa reached into her purse, pulled out something small, black, plastic, a flash drive. "Everything," she said. "Every con, every victim, every dollar. 11 years of documentation. Gary made me keep records in case he needed leverage against partners, in case anyone ever tried to turn on him." She slid the flash drive across the table. "Now I am turning it over to you." Ellie stared at the small device. It looked so innocent, so harmless, but it contained the evidence that could destroy Gary, put him away for decades, protect every future woman he might have targeted. "This could put you in prison too," Ellie said. "I know." "You are willing to go to prison?" Vanessa nodded slowly. Her eyes were wet, but she was not crying. Not quite. "I am tired. Tired of lying. Tired of pretending. Tired of watching people get hurt because of me. If prison is the price for ending this, then I will pay it. Gladly." "Why me? Why give this to me instead of the police?" "Because you are the first one who might actually stop him." Vanessa's voice was fierce now, urgent. The other victims were too broken by the time it was over, too ashamed to fight back, too convinced that no one would believe them. "But you are different." "How am I different?" "You got back up. After he hit you in that courtroom, you did not crumble. You did not beg. You did not try to minimize what happened. You just stood there looking at him like you were finally seeing him for what he really is." Ellie remembered that moment, the chaos around her, the pain in her cheek, the baby kicking inside her. And underneath it all, a strange, cold clarity. The mask had cracked, and she had seen what was underneath. "The prosecutors will want you to testify," Ellie said. "I know. I will testify. Against Gary, against myself, whatever it takes. I will tell them everything." "Why should I believe you?" It was the question she had been avoiding. The question that sat underneath everything else. Why should she trust anything this woman said? After everything she had done, after all the lies she had helped tell? Vanessa reached across the table, took Ellie's hand before she could pull away. "You should not believe me," Vanessa said. "You should not trust me. You should verify everything I have given you. Check every document. Cross-reference every name. Make sure I am not playing another angle." Her grip was firm. Her eyes were steady. "But I am not. This is the only honest thing I have done in 11 years. Maybe it is the only good thing I will ever do. But at least it will be something." Ellie sat in her car afterward, engine off, flash drive in her palm. The parking lot was quiet, late afternoon sun warming the windshield, shadows stretching across the pavement as the day wound toward evening. She should feel victorious. She had evidence. She had a cooperating witness. She had everything she needed to destroy Gary Brennan and make sure he never hurt anyone again. But she felt hollow instead. Win or lose, 6 years of her life had been a performance, a carefully scripted show put on for her benefit. Every moment, every memory, every touch. She had been the star of a play she did not know she was in, the audience and the mark, the prize and the fool. She called Diane. "How did it go?" Diane asked immediately. Ellie looked at the flash drive in her hand, small enough to fit in her pocket, heavy enough to change everything. "I think I just found our weapon." Mitchell Crawford's office had become a war room. The walls were covered with timelines and photographs. Bank statements spread across every surface. Legal pads filled with handwritten notes. Coffee cups in various stages of emptiness scattered like monuments to sleepless nights. And in the center of it all, projected on a screen, the contents of Vanessa's flash drive. "This is everything," Mitchell said. He was standing at the front of the room, laser pointer in hand, dark circles under his eyes, tie loosened, jacket discarded hours ago. Fake business documents going back 11 years. Wire transfer records from accounts in 6 different countries. Photos of Gary with at least a dozen different women, each one identified as a target or victim. Detective Booth was there. So was Janet Walsh, the federal prosecutor. Stern, professional. Her silver hair pulled back in a severe bun, her reading glasses perched on the end of her nose. "With Vanessa's cooperation, we can build a RICO case," Walsh said. "Racketeering, conspiracy, wire fraud, identity theft, money laundering. Gary Brennan could face 20 to 25 years in federal prison." 25 years. He would be in his 60s when he got out, an old man with nothing left. It should have felt like victory. It should have felt like justice. But then Mitchell played one of the audio recordings from the flash drive. Gary's voice filled the room, confident, casual, almost bored, like he was discussing the weather instead of destroying someone's life. "The Hartwell girl has 32 million coming at age 35. Old money, dead father, guilty mother. She will be the easiest mark yet." The recording continued, Gary explaining his strategy, how he would approach her at the charity event, what he would say about her father's book, how he would position himself as someone who admired Thomas Hartwell's legacy. "She is looking for a replacement," Gary's voice said, "for someone to take care of her the way Daddy did. I just have to convince her that I am that guy." The room was completely silent. Ellie felt the words settle into her chest, cold, heavy, like stones being piled on her heart. The easiest mark yet. She had been nothing to him. Not a person, not a partner, not even a challenge, just a number, a target, a prize to be won and stripped of value. "Eleanor," Mitchell said gently, "we can stop if you need a moment." "No, keep going. I want to hear all of it." The investigation continued for days. More victims came forward as word spread. A 62-year-old retired teacher in New Mexico who had given Gary her entire pension. A young widow in Florida whose insurance settlement had disappeared. A businessman in Chicago who had invested in a fake real estate development. Each story was the same. A charming man who seemed too good to be true. A whirlwind romance. A devastating betrayal. And each victim had believed they were the only one. Each one had been too ashamed to report what happened. Too humiliated to admit they had been fooled. The pattern was clear now. The scope was staggering. Gary Brennan had stolen millions of dollars over more than a decade, had destroyed dozens of lives, had left a trail of broken people from coast to coast, and he was still fighting. From his jail cell, he had orchestrated a campaign, anonymous tips to tabloids and gossip sites, stories questioning Ellie's mental stability, her fitness as a mother, her honesty. Trust fund heiress's breakdown, inside her erratic behavior, pregnant socialite's secrets. What she does not want you to know, did she know? Sources claim Ellie Hartwell was complicit in husband's schemes. The headed buy-ins appeared everywhere. Social media, news websites, even a segment on a cable news channel featuring anonymous experts analyzing her body language for signs of deception. "We are handling it," Mitchell assured her. "Defamation suits, cease and desist orders. We will shut this down." But the damage was done. The doubt had been planted. People were questioning, wondering, gossiping. "I did not know," Ellie told anyone who would listen. "I had no idea what he was doing. I was a victim too." "We know," they said. But did they? Did anyone really believe her? Or did they look at her and see a woman who had been too stupid to see what was right in front of her face? Dr. Webb called with concerns. "Your blood pressure is too high," she said. "The stress is affecting the baby. You are 36 weeks now. We need to be careful." "I cannot slow down. Not now, not with everything happening." "I understand, but your daughter needs you healthy. She needs you alive." Dr. Webb's voice was gentle but firm. "Take a breath. Delegate what you can. Trust the people around you to handle the fight." Trust. Such a complicated word now. That night, Ellie went to the nursery, the one at her mother's house. Smaller than the one she had prepared in her old home, but clean, safe, ready for a baby who would arrive soon. She sat in the rocking chair, hands on her belly. The moon was full outside, casting silver light across the room. "I do not know if I can do this," she whispered. "I do not know if I am strong enough." The baby kicked, once, twice, a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat answering her doubts. "I know you are counting on me. I know I am supposed to have everything figured out. I am supposed to be confident and brave and ready to fight." Another kick, stronger this time. "But I am so scared. I am so tired. And I do not know if I can be the mother you deserve." The silence offered no answers. But the baby kept kicking, kept moving, kept reminding her that she was not alone in this body, that she was carrying something precious, something worth fighting for. She closed her eyes, let the darkness wrap around her like a blanket. Tomorrow she would fight again. Tomorrow she would face the cameras and the lawyers in the endless, exhausting battle. But tonight she just needed to breathe. 1 week before her due date, the prosecution was ready, every document in order, every witness prepared, every piece of evidence cataloged and cross-referenced. The divorce was proceeding too. Gary's lawyers had backed off on most of their ridiculous claims. The prenup would stand. The custody arrangement would favor Ellie almost entirely. Everything was falling into place. The walls were closing in on Gary Brennan, and then the letter arrived, hand-delivered to the estate. No return address, just Eleanor Ashford written on the envelope in careful, feminine handwriting. Not Hartwell. Ashford. Like the marriage was still real. Ellie opened it alone in her room. The sun was setting outside, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Inside was a single sheet of paper, handwritten, from a woman named Linda Brennan, Gary's first wife. Not a con victim, his actual first marriage. Before the scams, before Vanessa, before everything that came after. "Dear Mrs. Ashford, I know you do not know me, but I know you. Or rather, I know what you are going through, because I was you once, 20 years ago. Gary and I met when we were teenagers. He was charming then too, sweet, attentive. He made me feel like the most special girl in the world. We got married when I was 19. He was 21. We were so young, so stupid, so certain that love would be enough. I am not writing to defend him. What he did to you was wrong. What he has done to all those women is wrong. He deserves whatever punishment he gets. I am writing to warn you. When Gary feels cornered, he becomes dangerous. Truly dangerous. The man you knew was a performance. The real Gary is something else entirely. Something cold, something calculating, something that sees other people as obstacles to be removed. The con started after our marriage ended, but the cruelty was there long before that. I saw glimpses of it, moments when the mask slipped, moments that scared me more than anything I had experienced before or since. Protect yourself, protect your child, and watch your back, because Gary never forgets, and he never forgives. Linda Brennan. Ellie read the letter 3 times, then she called Mitchell. "We need to increase security, immediately." That night, the alarm system went off. 2:15 in the morning. The piercing wail cut through Ellie's restless sleep like a knife. She sat up in bed, heart pounding. The baby kicked frantically, responding to her surge of adrenaline. Her mother was already in the hallway. The security team was scrambling, voices calling to each other in the darkness. "What is happening?" Ellie asked. "Someone tried to breach the north gate," the head of security said. His name was Marcus, former military, calm under pressure. They did not get in, but they triggered the perimeter sensors. They reviewed the camera footage in the security office, a figure in dark clothing, moving along the fence line, testing the locks, looking for a weak point. When the alarms triggered, the figure retreated, disappeared into the trees beyond the property line. Gary was in custody, had been for weeks. His bail had been denied 3 times, which meant he had allies they did not know about. People working for him on the outside. People willing to break into a pregnant woman's home in the middle of the night. "We are doubling the patrol," Marcus said, adding motion sensors around the entire perimeter, armed guards at every entrance. No one gets in or or out without our knowledge? Well, Ellie nodded, but she did not feel safe. She had not felt safe since the courtroom, since the slap, since the moment she realized that the man she loved was a stranger, and now she knew the stranger had friends. She went back to her room, locked the door, checked the lock 3 times to make sure. Then she broke down. 6 years of marriage, $14 million, her father's legacy, her sense of self, her ability to trust, all of it stolen by a man who saw her as nothing more than a target. And now someone was trying to get into her home, while she was 39 weeks pregnant, while she was already falling apart. She screamed into her pillow, threw a book across the room, then another, then the lamp from her nightstand. It shattered against the wall, raining glass across the carpet. The noise brought Diane running, pounding on the door. Ellie, Ellie, open the door, right now. But she could not. She was on the floor, curled around her belly, sobbing so hard she could not breathe, hyperventilating, choking on her own tears. I'm calling your mother, Diane said through the door. No, please, just give me a minute. A minute. Like a minute would fix anything, like 60 seconds could undo 6 years of lies. She lay on the floor in the darkness, feeling the baby kick against the hardwood, feeling her own heartbeat slowing from its frantic pace. At 3 in the morning, she finally let Diane in. What if I am just like him? The words spilled out before she could stop them. What? What if I cannot love her properly? What if I do not know what real love looks like anymore? What if I am so broken that I break her too? Diane sat down on the floor beside her, did not try to get her up, did not try to move her to the bed or clean up the broken glass, just sat there, present, solid. Eleanor Hartwell, Diane said, you listen to me right now. Her voice was steady, firm, the voice of a woman who had known Ellie since they were both terrified freshmen at Yale, who had seen her through breakups and failures and her father's death, who had never once let her give up. That man tried to take everything from you. Your money, your dignity, your truth, your sense of who you are. Ellie closed her eyes, tears still streaming down her face. But he cannot take your capacity to love. That is yours. It has always been yours. He did not give it to you. He cannot take it away. How do you know? Because I have known you for 15 years. Because I watched you with your father when he was dying. How patient you were. How present. How much love you poured into every moment. That was different. No, it was not. Love is love. The way you love does not change based on who you are loving. And you, Eleanor Grace Hartwell, love with your whole heart, every single time, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. Ellie opened her eyes, looked at her best friend, saw nothing but certainty in her face. I'm so scared, she whispered. I know. Being scared is okay. Being scared means you care, but you are not broken. I feel broken. No. Diane took her hands, held them tight. You are not broken. You are breaking open. There is a difference with them. Breaking open, not apart, open. Ellie held on to that thought, like a lifeline in dark water, like a hand reaching down to pull her up. Tomorrow she would fight again. Tomorrow she would face whatever Gary and his allies threw at her. But tonight she just needed to survive until morning. And she would. She would survive. Not because she was strong, not because she was brave, not because she had everything figured out, but because she had to. Because her daughter was counting on her. Because she was not alone. She held Diane's hands, felt the warmth, the solidity, the presence of someone who loved her without conditions, without ulterior motives, without lies. Real love. It did exist. She had not lost the ability to recognize it. Gary had not taken that from her. He had not taken anything that truly mattered, and she would not let him take anything else. Morning came, as it always did, as it always would. Ellie woke with a strange calm. The panic of the night before had burned itself out like a fever breaking. Left behind was something quieter, something harder, something that felt like clarity. She showered, dressed in something other than pajamas for the first time in days, went downstairs, ate breakfast, actually ate it, not just pushed it around her plate. You look different, her mother said, watching her over the rim of a coffee cup. I feel different. She could not explain it exactly, but something had shifted in the night, some internal alignment that had been off for years, like a bone that had been dislocated, finally settling back where it belonged. She was done being a victim. She had spent 6 years being played, 6 years being manipulated, 6 years being the mark in someone else's con. Now it was her turn. She asked Mitchell to arrange something unusual. I want to meet the real Bradley Ashford, the man whose identity Gary stole. I want to look him in the eye. Bradley Ashford flew in from Delaware that same afternoon. He was 40 years old, an accountant at a mid-sized firm, thin, quiet, unremarkable. The kind of man you would pass on the street without a second glance. The kind of man whose identity could be stolen because no one was paying attention to him in the first place. They met in Mitchell's conference room, just the two of them. The lawyers waited outside. Thank you for coming, Ellie said. Bradley shook his head. His hands were clasped in his lap, fidgeting, nervous. I should be thanking you, he said. When your lawyer called, I thought it was another dead end, another lead that would go nowhere. I have been trying to prove what happened for 7 years. What did happen? He sighed, rubbed his face with his hands. The gesture of a man who had told this story so many times that the words had worn smooth. My identity was stolen 7 years ago, completely. My social security number, my credit history, my name. Suddenly there was another Bradley Ashford out there, opening accounts, starting businesses, getting married. Getting married to me. Yes, on paper you were married to Bradley Ashford. The wedding certificate, the joint accounts, all of it. If you look at the legal documents, my name is all over your life. That must have been confusing. Confusing does not begin to cover it. His voice was bitter. I kept getting mail for addresses I did not live at, bills for credit cards I did not have, notices about businesses I did not own. My credit score was destroyed. My reputation was ruined. Did you try to report it? Of course I tried. I went to the police, the FBI, the FTC. Everyone said the same thing. They could not prove who had stolen my identity. They could not prove where the fake Bradley Ashford was operating. Without that proof, there was nothing they could do. And no one believed you. Why would they? There was another Bradley Ashford out there, living a better life than mine, making more money, married to a beautiful woman. Who was I to say he was the fake one? Ellie understood the helplessness, the frustration, the maddening experience of knowing the truth but being unable to prove it. I believe you, she said. Bradley looked up, really looked at her, for the first time since he walked in. You are the first person who ever said that. Then let us fix this together. You testify against Gary, I testify against Gary. We take back what he stole from both of us. Our names, our reputations, our lives. For the first time, Bradley smiled. Small, cautious, but real. I would like that. Ellie made another decision that afternoon. She was going public. Not to defend herself against tabloid attacks, not to respond to Gary's smear campaign, but to get ahead of the story, to tell it on her own terms. She called Sarah Mitchell at the Financial Times, a journalist she had worked with through her father's foundation. Careful, thorough, someone who verified every fact before publishing. I want to tell the whole story, Ellie said. Every victim, every lie, every dollar he stole. I want people to know what happened, and I want to make sure it never happens to anyone else. That will take time to report properly, Sarah said. I will need to interview multiple sources, verify every claim. This cannot be rushed. I have time. My baby is due in a week, but she can wait a few days. The article took 5 days to report, 5 days of interviews, documents, verification, cross-referencing every detail against every source. Sarah was as good as Ellie remembered, maybe better. When the article published, it made the front page. The con man who stole millions. Inside the 11-year fraud of Gary Brennan. Gary's face was everywhere, not the charming CEO persona, the mugshot, the real face beneath the mask, and underneath his photo, arranged in a grid, the faces of his victims. 6 women who had agreed to be identified. 6 women who had decided that their shame was less important than stopping him. 6 women standing together. The response was immediate. More victims came forward. Lawyers offered pro bono services. Support groups formed. A foundation was proposed. And Gary's lawyer requested an emergency meeting. A plea deal. Gary would plead guilty to reduced charges, serve 7 years instead of 20. In exchange, he would sign the divorce papers without contesting anything. He would give up all parental rights to the baby. He would disappear. You should consider it, Mitchell said. A guaranteed outcome. Less stress, closure before the baby comes. Ellie thought about it. The appeal of certainty, the relief of having it over. Then she remembered the recording. The Hartwell girl that has 32 million coming at age 35. Old money, dead father, guilty mother. She will be the easiest mark yet. She thought about the 6 women in the article. The others who had not come forward. The future victims who might never know to be careful. No deal, she said. I want a trial. I want everyone to hear what he did. I want it on the record. Forever. The trial began on a Monday, the first Monday of October. Bright blue sky, leaves just starting to turn, the kind of beautiful autumn day that seemed inappropriate for what was about to happen inside courtroom 3 of the federal building. Ellie was 39 weeks pregnant, due any day. Her doctor had advised against attending the trial. Too much stress, too much risk of triggering early labor. Ellie attended anyway. She sat in the front row of the gallery, her mother on one side, Diane on the other. Mitchell was at the prosecutor's table, consulting with Janet Walsh. The courtroom filled slowly. Reporters, legal observers, victims who had come to watch justice be done, or at least to watch someone try. And then Gary was led in. He was wearing an orange jumpsuit, shackles on his wrists and ankles. His hair had grown out. His face was thinner. The confident charm she remembered was nowhere to be seen. He looked smaller, diminished, like a balloon with the air slowly leaking out. He tried to catch her eye as he was led to the defense table. She looked right through him, like he was a stranger, like she had never met him before. In a way, she never had. The prosecution's case was methodical, devastating, overwhelming. Vanessa testified first. She took the stand in a simple gray dress, no makeup, her hair pulled back, looking nothing like the glamorous woman in red who had appeared at the divorce hearing. She described everything, every con, every victim, every strategy, how they identified targets, how they built trust, how they executed the fraud, how they disappeared. "Why are you testifying against your brother?" the prosecutor asked. Vanessa's voice was steady. Her eyes never left the jury. "Because I watched him hit a pregnant woman in open court, and I realized I had spent my entire life making excuses for a monster." The defense tried to discredit her, called her a liar, a co-conspirator trying to save herself, a woman scorned seeking revenge. Vanessa did not flinch. She answered every question directly, acknowledged her own crimes without hesitation, accepted responsibility without making excuses. By the time she stepped down, 2 of the jurors were crying. Bradley Ashford testified next. He described 7 years of stolen identity, the mail that went to addresses he did not live at, the marriages he did not know about, the complete destruction of his financial and personal life. "How did it feel here?" the prosecutor asked. "Knowing someone was living your life." Bradley's voice cracked. "Like I had been erased, like I did not exist anymore, like I was a ghost in my own body." The forensic accountant presented the numbers, charts and graphs, bank statements and wire transfers, the architecture of fraud laid out in meticulous detail. 14 million from Ellie, 300,000 from Judith, 600,000 from Richard Thornton, 200,000 from the widower in Phoenix, another 2 million from victims who had come forward since the investigation began. Over $17 million, stolen over 11 years, from people who had trusted the wrong person. And then it was Ellie's turn. She walked to the witness stand slowly, her belly enormous beneath her navy blue dress, the same color she had worn to her divorce hearing, the day Gary had slapped her, the day everything changed. "Please state your name for the record." "Eleanor Grace Hartwell." Not Ashford. She had legally changed it back 3 weeks ago. She was Eleanor Hartwell again, the woman she had been before Gary Brennan had entered her life. The prosecutor walked her through the story. Their meeting at the charity gala, The whirlwind courtship, the wedding, the years of marriage that had seemed so perfect. When did you first suspect something was wrong? Ellie considered the question carefully. I did not suspect. That was the point. He was so good at the performance, so convincing. I had no reason to doubt him. What changed? The courtroom, the divorce hearing, when he hit me. She touched her cheek unconsciously. It was like a mask fell off. Suddenly I was looking at a stranger. The defense attorney cross-examined her, tried to suggest she had known about the fraud, that she was complicit, that she was lying to protect her own interests. Ellie did not flinch. I believed in my husband, Shawit said. I trusted him with my money, my home, my future. That was not a crime. What he did to me, what he did to all of us, that was the crime. No further questions, the defense attorney said. He had nothing else. Everyone could see it. Closing arguments took most of the afternoon. The prosecution laid out the case with precision. Every count, every victim, every dollar stolen. Gary Brennan was not just a con man, he was a predator, a serial criminal who had destroyed lives without remorse. The defense argued reasonable doubt, mistaken identity, coerced testimony. But the arguments were weak, desperate, the clutching of straws in a rising flood. The jury deliberated for 2 hours and 47 minutes. When they filed back in, the courtroom went silent. Ellie held her breath. Her mother gripped her hand. Diane was whispering something that might have been a prayer. On the charge of wire fraud in the first count, the judge asked, how do you find? Guilty. The word echoed through the courtroom. On the charge of identity theft? Guilty. On the charge of assault in the second degree? Guilty. On the charge of conspiracy to commit fraud? Guilty. 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 15 counts. 15 guilty verdicts, each one landing like a hammer blow. Gary's face went pale, then red, then something twisted and ugly. All pretense of charm finally abandoned. He lunged across the defense table, toward Ellie, shouting words she could barely make out. Something about how she had ruined him, how she would pay, how this was not over. Bailiffs tackled him before he got 3 steps, slammed him to the ground, pinned him there while he continued to scream. But Ellie did not flinch. She simply placed a hand on her belly, felt her daughter kick, and walked out of the courtroom. Outside, reporters swarmed, cameras flashed, questions shouted from every direction. Mrs. Hartwell, how do you feel about the verdict? Will you be seeking civil damages? What do you want to say to other victims of romance fraud? Judith tried to shield her. Mitchell was speaking to the press. Diane was guiding her toward the car, but Ellie stopped, turned, faced the cameras. I want every woman who has ever been deceived by someone she loved to know something, she said. The shouting stopped. The cameras focused. Everyone listened. You are not stupid. You are not weak. You are not to blame for trusting someone who lied to you. She paused, let the words land. And your story is not over. She let Diane guide her to the car, climbed into the back seat, let out a breath she felt like she had been holding for 6 years. They were halfway home when she felt it, a tightness in her abdomen, a pressure she had never experienced before, a sensation that was unfamiliar and yet somehow instantly recognizable. Diane, she said, what is it? What is wrong? Ellie looked down. The seat beneath her was wet. I think my water just broke. The hospital was a blur of fluorescent lights and antiseptic smells and voices calling out numbers she did not understand. Ellie was wheeled through corridors, past doorways and nurses' stations and the anxious faces of strangers. Machines beeped somewhere nearby. Footsteps echoed. Someone was paging a doctor. All she knew was pain. Contractions that started like waves and built into tsunamis. Pain that radiated from her center outward. Pain that made her forget her own name. You are doing great, Webb said. She had arrived within an hour of the first call, taken over the delivery room with calm competence. 4 centimeters dilated. Progress is good. Good. The word felt absurd. Nothing about this felt good. Her mother was there, holding her hand. Judith Hartwell, who never showed emotion in public, who had learned to control her face in 100 boardrooms and charity galas, had tears streaming down her cheeks. "I am here, darling. I am right here." Diane was there too, on the other side, gripping her other hand so hard it would leave bruises. "Almost there, Ellie. Yeah, you can do this. I have never seen you fail at anything. You are not going to start now." But it did not feel almost. It felt endless. Waves of pain crashing over her, one after another, no respite, no relief. Between contractions, she thought about her father, Thomas Hartwell, who had built an empire from a single hardware store, who had worked 70 hours a week for 30 years, who had taught her to ride a bike and balance a checkbook and never give up on something she believed in. He would have loved this baby, would have spoiled her rotten, would have taught her all the things he had taught Ellie, the important things, the real things. He had died before he could meet his granddaughter, before he could hold her, before he could see Ellie become a mother. But she could still hear his voice, even now, even through the pain. "Protect what matters, Eleanor. Not the money, the truth, your truth." She had lost her truth for 6 years, given it away to a man who did not deserve it, let herself be defined by a lie. Now she was taking it back, one contraction at a time. "Push," Dr. Webb said. "Big push. You are almost there." Ellie pushed. The world narrowed to a single point. Pressure and pain and determination. Nothing else existed. Nothing else mattered. And then, suddenly, release. A cry. Thin and high and perfect. The most beautiful sound she had ever heard. "It is a girl," Dr. Webb said. 7 pounds, 4 ounces, perfect in every way. They placed the baby on her chest, warm, wiggling, covered in blood and fluid and all the messy reality of being born. Ellie looked down at her daughter, searched her face, looking for something, dreading something, but there was nothing of Gary there. No trace of the man who had stolen 6 years of her life. Just a tiny face scrunched up against the brightness of the world. Dark hair, small fingers curling and uncurling. Pure possibility, unmarked by the past, untouched by betrayal. "What is her name?" the nurse asked. Ellie looked at her mother, at Diane, at the daughter who represented everything she had almost lost and everything she had fought to keep. "Grace," she said. "Grace Eleanor Hartwell." Not Ashford, not Brennan, nothing that connected her to the lie. Hartwell, like her mother, like her grandfather, like every generation of strength that had come before. Grace opened her eyes, dark blue, like all newborns. They would probably change, become brown like Ellie's. Or stay blue. It did not matter. What mattered was that she was here. She was healthy. She was real. Ellie kissed her forehead, breathed in the scent of new life, new beginnings. "Hello, Grace. I am your mother, and I am going to spend my whole life keeping you safe." 6 months later, the nursery at the estate had become the center of Ellie's world, a small universe of pale yellow walls and white furniture and the constant, comforting demands of a growing baby. Grace was thriving, 6 months old, chubby cheeks in dark curls and a laugh that sounded like music. She had started sleeping through the night a month ago, a miracle that Ellie had not dared hope for. Mornings were for coffee and cuddles, afternoons for walks in the garden, evenings for bath time and lullabies, and the 1,000 small rituals of motherhood. It was a good life, a peaceful life, a life she had earned through fire. The headlines had faded, the trial was over. Gary Brennan was serving 15 years in federal prison. He would be 53 when he got out, an old man with a criminal record and nothing left. Vanessa had taken a plea deal, 5 years reduced to 3 for cooperation. She was in a minimum security facility in Ohio, not far from where she had grown up, where she and Gary had first met. She had written to Ellie once, a short letter, apologizing again, explaining that she was getting therapy for the first time in her life, that she was trying to understand how she had become the person she had been. Ellie had not written back yet. She was not sure she ever would. Some wounds took longer to heal than others, but she no longer hated Vanessa. That was something. Progress, maybe. The foundation was Ellie's focus now. The Hartwell Foundation for Fraud Victims, funded by assets recovered from Gary's offshore accounts, dedicated to helping people rebuild after financial devastation. We received 43 applications this week, her assistant said. 12 meet all criteria for full assistance. Another 15 are borderline cases. Approve the 12. Schedule calls with the borderline cases. I want to hear their stories personally. It was not just about money, it was about validation, about telling people that what happened to them was real, that it was not their fault, that someone believed them. The same things she had needed to hear, the same things that had taken her too long to accept. Bradley Ashford's identity had been fully restored, his credit repaired, his reputation rebuilt. He had sent flowers when Grace was born, a simple arrangement of daisies with a card. Thank you for believing me. It changed my life. Richard Thornton, the elderly widower, had received partial restitution from Gary's seized assets. Not everything he had lost, but enough to live on, enough to feel like justice had been done. He had come to visit once, driven all the way from Phoenix, stood in Ellie's living room with tears in his eyes, holding Grace with trembling hands. She is beautiful, he had said. She looks like hope. Hope, yes, that was what Grace was. That was what all of this was about. The other victims were finding their own paths forward. Some had joined support groups. Others had started advocacy work. A few had reached out to Ellie directly, wanting to help with the foundation. We are not marks anymore, one of them wrote. We are survivors. Because you stood up and told the truth. Diane came by most afternoons. She and Grace had developed their own relationship. Diane called herself the fun aunt, the one who would teach Grace to cause trouble and never apologize for it. You know what today is, Diane said, settling into a chair with a glass of wine. Ellie looked up from the foundation report she was reviewing. Tuesday. 1 year, since the courtroom, since he hit you, since everything changed. 1 year, it felt like a lifetime ago. It also felt like yesterday. Are you okay? Diane asked. Ellie considered the question. Really considered it, not just the reflexive fine that she had spent so many years offering. I think so, most days. The nightmares are less frequent now. The anger comes in waves instead of constant storms. And the therapy? Helps. Dr. Morrison says I am making excellent progress. Learning to trust my own judgment again. Learning to believe that I deserved better. Diane set down her wine, leaned forward. I have something to tell you. That sounds serious? It is. I have been seeing someone for about 3 months now. Ellie felt something warm bloom in her chest. Diane, that is wonderful. I wanted to tell you sooner, but I was not sure how you would feel. Given everything that happened, given how much my last boyfriend hurt you. Your last boyfriend, she meant Gary, of course. The man Diane had encouraged her to date. The charming CEO at the charity gala who seemed so perfect. That was not your fault, Ellie said. You could not have known. I know, but I still felt responsible. If I had not pushed you toward him, then he would have found another way. Men like Gary always do. Ellie reached across and took her friend's hand. Tell me about this new person. Tell me everything. His name is Marcus. He is a pediatric surgeon at Mount Sinai. We met at a charity event. Your charity event, actually. The gala last fall? Yes, he was standing by the silent auction, looking completely lost. I rescued him. Ellie laughed, a real laugh, the kind that came from somewhere deep, the kind she had not been sure she would ever feel again. I want to meet him. You will, soon, when you are ready. When she was ready. That was the question, was it not? When would she be ready to trust again? To let someone new into her life? To risk her heart after it had been so thoroughly broken? Not yet, maybe not for a long time, but someday, the possibility existed, and that was enough. 1 year after the verdict, Ellie stood in the nursery watching the morning light stream through the windows. The same pale yellow walls, the same white furniture. But everything felt different now. Grace was walking, tottering around on the unsteady legs, grabbing furniture for balance, falling down and getting back up, over and over again. Relentless. Come to Mama, Ellie said, holding out her arms. Grace grinned, that gap-toothed, joyful grin that made everything else disappear. She took 3 wobbly steps, 4, 5, then she fell, landed on her padded bottom with a soft thump. For a moment, she looked surprised, like she was not sure what had happened. Then she got back up, reached for the coffee table, steadied herself, started again. "That is my girl," Ellie whispered. "Never stop getting back up." The doorbell rang. Ellie scooped Grace onto her hip and went to answer it. A delivery driver stood on the steps, holding a bouquet of white roses and purple irises, the same flowers Vanessa had sent every month for the past year. "Thank you," Ellie said, taking them. The card was simple, the same words every time, from one survivor to another. Ellie had started writing back 3 months ago, short notes at first, then longer letters. The correspondence had become something unexpected. Not friendship exactly, but understanding. Recognition between two people who had lived through the same storm. Vanessa would be released next year. She had plans, a fresh start in a new city, a job at a nonprofit that helped abuse victims, a chance to use what she knew about manipulation to protect others from it. Ellie was not sure how she felt about that yet, but she was learning that forgiveness did not have to happen all at once. It could come in pieces, like healing, like trust. She put Grace down for her morning nap, stood over the crib, watched her daughter's eyes flutter closed, listened to her breathing slow and steady. This child, this perfect, innocent child. She knew nothing about what her mother had been through, what her biological father had done, what chaos had surrounded her entrance into the world. All she knew was love, safety, the sound of her mother's voice singing lullabies. Ellie hoped that would always be enough. She went to the window, looked out at the garden. The roses were blooming. Late summer color everywhere. Bees humming, birds singing. A year ago, she had been 9 months pregnant, sitting in a courtroom, watching her husband being found guilty on 15 counts. Now she was standing in her own strength, running her own foundation, raising her own daughter, building her own future. She thought about the woman she had been before, the woman who had fallen for Gary's lies, who had believed his performance, who had given away her truth without realizing what she was losing. That woman was gone, not destroyed, transformed. I spent 6 years trying to be enough for someone who was never really there. The thought came clearly. Without pain, just acknowledgement. I missed the point entirely. I was already enough. I always had been. The con was not that Gary made her love him. The con was that he made her forget to love herself, never again. She touched the window glass, cool beneath her fingers. Outside, a cardinal landed on the garden wall, tilted its head, looked right at her. Her father's voice echoed in her memory, the lullaby he used to sing, the words she had carried through every dark moment. Rest now, little bird. She had rested. She had healed. She was still healing. Tomorrow the sun will rise. It was rising now, golden light spreading across the garden, across the nursery, across her daughter's sleeping face, and you will fly again. She was flying, not high, not fast, but steady. Forward. Up. The doorbell rang again. She was not expecting anyone. Diane was not due until afternoon. Her mother was at a board meeting. She went to the door, opened it. A man stood on the steps. Tall, dark hair, kind eyes. He was holding a folder of documents and looking slightly nervous. "Ms. Hartwell, I am James Cooper from the district attorney's office. I am sorry to bother you at home. Is something wrong? Is it about the case?" No, nothing like that. Everything is proceeding as expected." He shifted the folder in his hands. "I am actually here because of your foundation, the Hartwell Foundation for Fraud Victims." "What about it?" "We would like to partner with you, officially, created a joint program to help identify romance fraud earlier, to warn potential victims before they lose everything." Ellie stared at him. "You want to partner with me? You have done more to raise awareness about this type of crime than anyone in recent memory. Your willingness to speak publicly about what happened to you has helped dozens of other victims come forward, maybe hundreds. Hundreds. She had not known that, had not thought about the ripples spreading outward from her own story. "I would like to discuss the details," James said. "If you have time. No pressure, of course." Ellie thought about it. Another commitment, another demand on her time. More work on top of the foundation and the motherhood and the ongoing process of rebuilding her life. But also more impact. More help, more survivors who would not have to face this alone. "Come in," she said. "I have coffee. We can talk." They talked for 2 hours about programs and policies and possibilities, about ways to identify predators before they struck, about resources for victims after they did. By the time James left, they had the outline of a plan, something bigger than what she had built alone, something that could change thousands of lives. She closed the door behind him, stood in the quiet foyer, listened to Grace stirring in her crib upstairs. This is what I fought for, she thought. Not revenge, not anger. This. The chance to turn her pain into something that mattered. The opportunity to make sure other women did not have to go through what she went through. She climbed the stairs to the nursery, lifted Grace from her crib, held her close. "We are going to do something important," she whispered into her daughter's hair. "We are going to help people." Grace babbled something incomprehensible, grabbed a fistful of Ellie's hair, laughed. Ellie laughed too, that deep, real laugh that came from somewhere she had thought was broken forever. She carried Grace to the window, showed her the garden, the roses, the cardinals still sitting on the wall. "See that bird?" she said. "Your grandfather used to sing about birds, little birds who got lost sometimes, little birds who found their way home." Grace pointed at the cardinal, made a sound that might have been her attempt at bird. "That is right, bird. He would have loved you so much. He would have been so proud of who you are going to become." The cardinal flew away, up into the blue sky, gone in an instant. But Ellie did not feel sad watching it go. She felt grateful for the moment, for the memory, for the connection between past and present and future. She thought about all the women out there right now, women being charmed by men like Gary, women being told they were special, chosen, loved. Women who had no idea that the fairy tale was a trap. Some of them she could help. Some of them she could warn. Some of them she could catch before they fell. Not all of them. That was the hard truth. She could not save everyone. But she could save some, and some was enough. Some was everything. She looked at her reflection in the window, touched her cheek. The same cheek Gary had slapped in that courtroom 2 years ago now. No bruise, no mark, just her. Eleanor Grace Hartwell, mother, advocate, survivor. She had been broken. She had been betrayed. She had been made to feel small and stupid and worthless. And she had risen anyway. Not because she was special, not because she was strong, not because she had some quality that other victims lacked, but because she had refused to let the story end with her defeat, because she had decided that what happened to her would not define her, because she had chosen to take the worst thing that ever happened to her and turn it into something that could help others. That was her power now. Not money, not status, not the Hartwell name. Her power was her story, and she was just beginning to tell it. "We are going to be okay, Grace," she whispered. "Better than okay. We are going to be free." The baby smiled, that gap-toothed, joyful smile, and they were, finally, completely free. Eleanor's story proves one thing. You are never too smart to be fooled, and you are never too broken to rise again. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button. It helps more than you know. Drop a comment below. Have you ever trusted someone who turned out to be completely different? Your story matters. Share this with a friend who needs to hear it. You never know who might be going through something similar right now. And if you are new here, subscribe and tap that bell. We bring you powerful stories of women who refuse to stay down, because every ending is just a new beginning. See you in the next story.